constitutes suffering. Let us, too, overcome all things, with our reward consisting not in any wreath or garland, not in trumpet calls for silence, for the ceremonial proclamation of our name, but in moral worth, in strength of spirit, in a peace that is won forever, once in any contest fortune has been utterly defeated. I'm suffering severe pain, you may say. Well, does it stop you suffering it if you endure it in a womanish fashion? In the same way as the enemy can do far more damage to your army if it is in full retreat, every trouble that may come our way presses harder on the one who has turned tail and is giving ground. But it's really severe. Well, is courage only meant to enable us to bear up under what is not severe? Would you rather have an illness that's long, drawn out, or one that's short and quick? If it's a long one, it will have the odd interval, giving one opportunity for rallying, granting one a good deal of time free of it, having a necessity to pause in order to build up again. An illness that's swift and short will have one of two results. Either oneself or it will be snuffed out. And what difference does it make whether I or it disappears? Either way, there's an end to the pain. Another thing which will help is to turn your mind to other thoughts and that way get away from your suffering. Call to mind things which you have done that have been upright or courageous. Run over in your mind the finest parts that you have played, and cast your memory over the things you have most admired. This is a time for recollecting all those individuals of exceptional courage who have triumphed over pain. The man who steadily went on reading a book while he was having varicose veins cut out. The man who never stopped smiling under torture, albeit that this angered his tormentors into trying on him every instrument of cruelty they had. If pain has been conquered by a smile, will it not be conquered by reason? And here you may mention anything you care to name. Catarrh, a fit of uninterrupted coughing so violent that it brings up parts of the internal organs, having one's very entrails seared by a fever. Thirst, having limbs wrenched in different directions with dislocation of the joints, or worse than these, being stretched on the rack or burnt alive, or subjected to the red-hot plates and instruments designed to reopen and deepen swelling wounds. There have been men who have undergone these experiences and never uttered a groan. He needs more. He hasn't asked for mercy. He needs more. He still hasn't answered. He needs more. He's actually smiled, and not a forced smile either. Surely pain is something you will want to smile at after this. But my illness has taken me away from my duties and won't allow me to achieve anything. Well, it is your body, not your mind as well, that is in the grip of ill health. Hence it may slow the feet of a runner and make the hands of a smith or cobbler less efficient. But if your mind is by habit of an active turn, you may still give instruction and advice, listen and learn, inquire and remember. Besides, if you meet sickness in a sensible manner, do you really think you are achieving nothing? You will be demonstrating that even if one cannot always beat it, one can always bear an illness. There is room for heroism, I assure you, in bed as anywhere else. War and the battlefront are not the only spheres in which proof is to be had of a spirited and fearless character. A person's bravery is no less evident under the bedclothes. There is something it lies open to you to achieve, and that is making the fight with illness a good one. If its threats or importunities leave you quite unmoved, you are setting others a signal example. How much scope there would be for renown if, whenever we were sick, we had an audience of spectators. Be your own spectator anyway, your own applauding audience. Pleasures, moreover, are of two kinds. The physical pleasures are the ones which illness interferes with, though it does not do away with them altogether. Indeed, if you take a true view of the matter, they are actually sharpened by illness. A man deriving greater pleasure from drinking something when he is thirsty and finding food all the more welcome through being hungry, anything set before one, after one has had to fast, being greeted with a heightened appetite. But no doctor can refuse his patient those other greater and surer pleasures, the pleasures of the mind and spirit. Anyone who follows these and genuinely knows them pays no attention whatever to all the enticements of the senses. How very unfortunate he is, people say, to be sick like that. Why? Because he isn't melting snow in his wine? Because he isn't breaking ice into a bumper goblet to keep the drink he has mixed in it chilled? Because lucrine oysters aren't being opened before him at his table? Because there isn't any bustling of cooks about the dining room, bringing in not just the viands themselves, but the actual cooking apparatus along with them? For this is the latest innovation in luxurious living, having the kitchen accompany the dinner end to the table, so as to prevent any of the food losing its heat, and avoid anything being at a temperature insufficiently scalding for palates which are nowadays like leather. How very unfortunate he is to be sick, they say. In fact, he'll be eating just as much as he'll digest. There won't be a whole boar lying somewhere where people can see it, conveying the impression that it has been banished from the table as being too cheap and ordinary a piece of meat to be on it. Nor will he have his trolley piled high with, now that people think it not quite nice to see the whole bird, carved breast of fowl. And what's so bad about your being deprived of that? You may be eating like a sick man, but you'll at last be eating in the way a healthy man should. But given one thing, we shall find it easy to put up with the potions and warm drinks and all the rest of it, all the things that seem unbearable to people who have become spoilt, who have become soft through a life of luxury, ailing more in the mind than they ever are in the body. The one requirement is that we cease to dread death. And so we shall, as soon as we have learned to distinguish the good things and the bad things in this world. Then and only shall we stop being weary of living, as well as scared of dying. For a life spent viewing all the variety, the majesty, the sublimity in things around us can never succumb to ennui. The feeling that one is tired of being, of existing, is usually the result of an idle and inactive leisure. Truth will never pall on someone who explores the world of nature, wearied as a person will be by the spurious things. Moreover, even if death is on the way with a summons for him, though it come all too early, though it cut him off in the prime of life, he has experienced every reward that the very longest life can offer, having gained extensive knowledge of the world we live in, having learnt that time adds nothing to the finer things in life. Whereas any life must needs seem short to people who measure it in terms of pleasures, which through their empty nature are incapable of completeness. Let these reflections promote your recovery, and meanwhile do find time for our correspondence. Time will bring us together again one of these days, and when, as it will, the reunion comes, however short it may last, knowing how to make the most of it will turn it into a long one. As Posidonius said, in a single day there lies open to men of learning more than there ever does to the unenlightened in the longest of lifetimes. In the meantime, cling tooth and nail to the following rule: not to give in to adversity, never to trust prosperity, and always take full note of Fortune's habit of behaving just as she pleases, treating her as if she were actually going to do everything it is in her power to do. Whatever you have been expecting for some time comes as less of a shock. Letter number 83. You demand an account of my days, generally as well as individually. You think well of me if you suppose that there is nothing in them for me to hide. And we should indeed live as if we were in public view, and think, too, as if someone could peer into the inmost recesses of our hearts, which someone can. For what is to be gained if something is concealed from man, when nothing is barred from God? He is present in our minds, in attendance in the midst of our thoughts, although by attendance I do not mean to suggest that he is not at times absent from our thoughts. I shall do as you say then, and gladly give you a record of what I do and in what order. I shall put myself under observation straight away, and undertake a review of my day, a course which is of the utmost benefit. What really ruins our characters is the fact that none of us looks back over his life. We think about what we are going to do, and only rarely of that, and fail to think about what we have done. Yet any plans for the future are dependent on the past. Today has been unbroken. No one has robbed me of any part of it. It has been wholly divided between my bed and my reading. A very small part of it has been given over to physical exercise, and on this account I'm grateful for old age, for the exercise costs me little trouble. I only have to stir and I'm weary, and that, after all, is the end of exercise, even for the strongest. Interested in having my trainers? One's enough for me. Farius, a likeable young fellow, as you know, but he's due for a change. I'm looking now for someone rather more youthful. He in fact declares that we're both at the same climacteric, since we're both losing our teeth. But I've reached the stage where I can only keep up with him with difficulty when we're out for a